The invitation I shouldn't have accepted. I still remember the exact moment it all began. A single decision that seemed harmless at first, but later I would wish I had never made. If I had just ignored that invitation, maybe, just maybe, I wouldn't be here telling you this story. It was a Friday evening, and the city outside my window glowed with the restless energy of the weekend. My phone buzzed, and when I checked it, I found a message from an old college friend named Daniel. We hadn't spoken in years, so it surprised me to see his name appear on my screen. The message was simple, almost casual, but something about it unsettled me even then. It read, "I'm hosting a small gathering at my new place tomorrow night. It's a house I recently bought, bit old, but full of character. Would love to catch up. You should come." There was nothing alarming in those words, but the picture he attached with it. That's what made me hesitate. It was a photo of the house, a tall looming structure framed by skeletal trees that twisted upward like claws. The house was old, with broken shutters and bricks darkened by age. Something about it felt wrong, almost as if the house itself was staring back at me. I typed a polite excuse at first. "Sorry, been busy, maybe next time." But before I hit send, another message came in. "Don't say no, it's important." That line hit me strangely. Daniel was never the type to insist on anything. In college, he was laid back, easygoing, the kind of guy who went along with anything. So for him to sound almost demanding, it was out of character. Against my better judgment, curiosity started to creep in. What was so important about this house? I stared at the photo again. Maybe it was the way the shadows fell across its windows, or maybe it was just my imagination. But I swore I could see a faint light glowing from one of the upstairs rooms, like someone was already there, watching. Still, I convinced myself I was being ridiculous. It was just an old house. People buy old houses all the time. Maybe after all these years, Daniel genuinely wanted to reconnect. So against every instinct screaming at me not to, I replied, "Sure, I'll come." That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept drifting back to the photo. Each time I closed my eyes, I saw the house standing there in the dark, waiting for me. The next morning, I tried brushing it off. Went about my day as usual, but a strange heaviness followed me everywhere. My coffee tasted bitter, the air felt thick, and every sound seemed louder than it should be. It was as if the world itself was warning me not to go. But I ignored it. I told myself I was just being paranoid. As the sun began to set, I grabbed my car keys and set out on the road. The directions Daniel sent me led far outside the city, down winding roads that grew narrower with each mile. Civilization slowly disappeared behind me. Streetlights became fewer and fewer until there were none at all. The last stretch of road was a dirt path cutting through thick woods. The trees leaned so close that their branches scraped against the sides of my car. My headlights barely cut through the darkness, and the silence was suffocating. Not a single bird, not a single cricket. Just the sound of my tires crunching against gravel. When I finally reached the clearing, my stomach dropped. There it was. It's the same house from the picture, only this time, it looked worse. Much worse. Its windows were black voids, the kind that seemed to swallow light. The wooden door hung crookedly, as if it hadn't been opened in years. And yet, the upstairs window glowed faintly, with that same pale, unnatural light I had noticed before. I parked the car and sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. Every instinct inside me screamed to turn around. Leave. Forget about Daniel. Forget about this house. But then, I remembered his message. Don't say no. It's important. Reluctantly, I stepped out of the car. The air was colder here, biting against my skin as I approached the house. The crunch of gravel under my shoes seemed unbearably loud, echoing in the silence. When I reached the porch, I noticed something carved into the wood of the front door. At first I thought it was just scratches from age, but when I leaned closer I realized they were words. Words written in deep, jagged lines, as if etched by someone desperate. It read, "Leave while you can." My breath caught in my throat. I froze, staring at the message, my heart pounding. Part of me wanted to run back to the car immediately, but before I could move, the front door creaked open slowly on its own. And from the darkness inside, a voice whispered my name. A road that never seemed to end, the sound of my name whispered from the darkness made my skin crawl. It wasn't Daniel's voice. It was softer, older, and carried a tone I can only describe as hungry. I froze at the doorframe, unsure if I had truly heard it or if my mind was playing tricks on me. "Daniel?" I called, my voice trembling slightly. No response, just silence. Then, suddenly a floorboard creaked somewhere deep inside, like footsteps retreating further into the house. My instincts screamed at me to turn around, but curiosity and a strange pull I couldn't explain kept me rooted in place. Before I knew it, I had stepped inside. The air in the house was colder than outside, and it smelled of damp wood and something faintly metallic like rust or maybe blood. The door slammed shut behind me with a thunderous bang. I spun around, my heart hammering. My hands fumbled for the knob, but it wouldn't budge. It was as though the wood itself had grown solid around it, locking me in. "Okay, don't panic," I muttered to myself, trying to keep calm. I took a deep breath and turned back toward the hallway. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and when I pulled it out, I saw another message from Daniel. "You made it. Follow the hallway. Don't stop, no matter what." I stared at the message, a sick feeling twisting in my gut. Don't stop. What did that mean? Still, I moved forward, my footsteps echoing in the long, narrow corridor. The walls seemed to close in the further I walked, lined with faded wallpaper that peeled in jagged strips. Old family portraits hung crookedly along the walls, their faces scratched out or blurred with age. I passed a mirror and caught sight of my reflection, or what I thought was my reflection, except it wasn't moving the same way I was. When I stepped forward, it hesitated. When I raised my hand, it tilted its head instead. My stomach dropped. I hurried past it, not daring to look again. The hallway stretched on endlessly. I kept walking, but no matter how far I went, I couldn't reach the end. It felt like a cruel loop, each step taking me further from where I began, but never closer to where I was going. The silence grew heavier. My own footsteps were the only sound, until whisper. They started faintly at first, like distant murmurs. Whipped my head around, but no one was there. The whispers grew louder, overlapping voices that seemed to come from the walls themselves. They were chanting something, though I couldn't understand the words. My phone buzzed again. With trembling hands, I unlocked the screen. Don't listen to them. Just keep walking. The glow from my phone flickered, and for a split second, the text on the screen shifted into something else. It now read, "You're already dead." I dropped the phone in shock, and I bent down to grab it. The screen was back to normal, showing Daniel's message. My hands were shaking so badly that I shoved it into my pocket without looking further. The whispers turned into laughter, high-pitched, broken laughter that echoed all around me.
Ow.
My pace quickened. The hallway seemed to stretch longer, twisting unnaturally. The portraits on the wall now had eyes scratched deeper, some faces missing entirely, replaced with gaping black voids. I don't know how long I walked. Minutes? Hours? My legs felt heavy, as though the floor was pulling me down with every step. Sweat dripped down my back, but the air was still ice cold. Finally, in the distance, I saw a faint door. Relief washed over me. At last, an end to this nightmare hallway. I hurried toward it, my footsteps quick, almost running now. The whispers rose behind me, growing louder and angrier as though they knew I was about to escape. When I reached the door, I grabbed the handle and yanked it open. A wave of warm air rushed past me, and I stumbled inside. The door slammed shut behind me, and I found myself standing in a dimly lit room. Unlike the hallway, this room looked lived in. Fireplace burned faintly, casting flickering shadows across old furniture. At first glance, it almost felt safe. And then I saw him. Daniel sat in an armchair by the fire, his face half hidden in the shadows. His eyes flickered up to meet mine, and for a brief moment, I felt a wave of relief. But then, as he stood up, I realized something was wrong. His movements were stiff, unnatural, like a puppet being pulled by invisible strings. His smile was too wide, stretching far beyond what should be humanly possible. "Glad you made it," he said, his voice low, almost distorted. I opened my mouth to speak, but before I could say anything, he raised a finger to his lips. "She," he whispered. "The house is listening." The house breathing in the dark, Daniel's whisper lingered in the room like smoke, thick and suffocating. "The house is listening." I stared at him, my heart pounding so hard I thought the house itself could hear it. Why the unnatural smile didn't fade. The firelight flickered across his face, making the shadows dance, twisting his expression into something grotesque. I forced myself to speak, my voice barely a whisper. "Daniel, what's going on? Why did you bring me here?" Didn't answer right away. Instead, he tilted his head slowly like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. The silence pressed down on me, broken only by the faint crackle of the fireplace. Then finally, he leaned closer and whispered, "You shouldn't have come." His words sent a chill through me. I felt my throat tighten, my mouth dry. I wanted to demand answers, to shout, but before I could, a sound filled the room. At first, I thought it was the wind outside, but it wasn't. It was deeper, heavier, slow, drawn-out inhale, then an exhale, the sound of breathing. The house itself was breathing. The walls groaned softly, expanding and contracting with each breath. The wallpaper straining, as if the wood beneath it was alive. I stumbled backward, my eyes wide. The sound was everywhere above, me, beneath me, around me. The house was alive, and it knew I was inside. Daniel didn't move. He just stood there, smiling that grotesque smile, his eyes never leaving mine. I felt a wave of panic rise in my chest. "This is insane," I muttered, backing toward the door. My hand grasped the knob, but when I tried to twist it, it wouldn't turn. Just like before, it was sealed shut, as though the house itself refused to let me leave. The breathing grew louder, faster, like the house was excited hungry. The shadows cast by the fire stretched unnaturally across the walls, twisting into shapes that didn't belong. Faces appeared in the patterns of the wallpaper, their mouths open in silent screams. I turned back to Daniel, my voice shaking. "What is this place? What's happening to you?" For the first time, his smile faded. His eyes flickered with something's fear, maybe. "It doesn't let go," he whispered. "Once you step inside, it doesn't ever let you leave." I shook my head, refusing to believe it. No, this isn't real. The house exhaled again, and with it, every candle in the fireplace flickered violently. The flames stretched unnaturally long, reaching upward like desperate hands before snapping back down. In the brief darkness, I swore I saw something moving in the corners of the room. When the firelight returned, Daniel was standing closer to me than before. Too close. His face hovered just inches from mine, and I realized his eyes weren't normal. They weren't human anymore. They were hollow, black voids. "You hear it too, don't you?" asked, his voice low, trembling. "The house, it breathes for us. It feeds on us." I staggered back, my legs nearly giving way. My instincts screamed for me to escape, to run, but there was nowhere to go. The breathing had turned into a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat now. The floorboards beneath me pulsed faintly, as though I was standing on the chest of some slumbering beast. Suddenly, the fireplace roared to life, the flames bursting higher. In the light, I saw something crawling across the ceiling, shadow long and twisted with limbs too thin and too many joints. It moved like a spider, clinging to the beams, its head turning unnaturally toward me. I gasped, stumbling backward, but Daniel didn't react. He just kept staring at me with those hollow eyes. "Don't look at it," he said. "If you look too long, it notices you." But it was too late. The shadow thing had already stopped moving. Its head tilted, and though it had no face, I felt it watching me. My heart slammed against my ribs as I looked away, focusing on the floor, but the air had grown heavier, harder to breathe. The house was suffocating me, pressing its weight into my lungs. I grabbed Daniel by the shoulders, shaking him. "Tell me how to get out. There has to be a way out." His smile returned, slow and twisted. "There's only one way," he whispered. "But you won't like it." Before I could ask what he meant, the shadow creature dropped from the ceiling. The floor shook with a thunderous impact, and every candle went out at once. I was plunged into darkness so thick I could barely see my own hands. The only sound was the house's heavy, wet breathing closer now, almost right against my ear. And then a whisper, "You belong to me now." Whispers behind the walls, the words "you belong to me now," slithered into my ears like poison. I froze in the suffocating darkness, my body paralyzed by a fear so deep it felt ancient. I couldn't tell if the voice came from the shadow creature, the house itself, or from inside my own head. The silence that followed was worse than the whisper. A silence so heavy it pressed against my chest, smothering me. My own ragged breathing was the only sound I could hear until the walls began to murmur. At first it was faint, a hushed static, like voices carried on a broken radio signal. I strained my ears, trying to understand. Slowly, the whispers grew clearer. "Don't stay here. It hurts. It never ends. Get out while you can." The voices were everywhere, overlapping, desperate. I stumbled backward, my hands brushing against the wallpaper. The moment my fingers touched the wall, the whispers grew sharper, louder, as if I had pressed my ear against a mouth that was hidden within the plaster. I yanked my hand away, horrified, but the voices followed me. "Run, run." The fireplace flickered back to life suddenly, casting the room in a sickly orange glow. I looked around, panicked. Daniel was gone. No sign of him, no sound of footsteps. He had simply vanished. My heart pounded in my throat. "Daniel," I called, my voice cracking. "Where are you?" The only answer was the house breathing, louder now, more eager. The shadows along the walls seemed to stretch toward me, reaching like fingers. I bolted for the nearest door. My hand shook violently as I gripped the handle and pulled. To my surprise, it opened easily this time, swinging wide to reveal another hallway. But this one was worse than the first. The corridor stretched long and narrow, lined with doors on either side. The air was colder here, and the floor creaked beneath my weight like old bones snapping. As I stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind me, sealing me in once more. The whispers returned immediately, louder and clearer. I realized now they weren't random voices. They were people, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, trapped within the walls. Some pleaded, some screamed. Some laughed in a broken, hysterical way. I pressed forward, trying to ignore them, but the closer I moved, the more the whispers turned personal. "We know your name. You can't leave like the others couldn't. We've been waiting for you." I froze in my tracks. My stomach churned as cold sweat slid down my neck. "No, you're not real," I whispered to myself, clinging to denial like a lifeline. But then, one voice rose above the rest, a voice I recognized. "Help me." I spun toward the wall, my blood running cold. That was Daniel's voice, his real voice, not the distorted version I'd seen by the fireplace. I pressed my ear against the wall, trembling. "Daniel, is that you?" The wallpaper felt damp and sticky against my skin, and from the other side, his voice came clearer now. "It's got me. It's got all of us. Don't let it take you too." I jerked back, my heart hammering. "What do you mean? Where are you?" But the answer I got wasn't Daniel. It was something else. A guttural growl that rose from deep within the walls, vibrating the wood and plaster, making dust rain from the ceiling. The whispers fell silent, all at once. I staggered back down the hallway, my eyes darting to the doors lining either side. Each one looked identical, plain wooden frames with brass knobs. I didn't know where they led or if they led anywhere at all. But I couldn't stand still, couldn't let whatever was in the walls catch me. I grabbed the nearest door and yanked it open. Inside was not another room. It's not even darkness. It was. The door revealed nothing but a gaping black void that seemed endless, swallowing the light from the hallway. Cold wind rushed from it, carrying faint whispers that tugged at my mind, urging me to step forward. My legs trembled as I slammed the door shut, gasping. I tried the next one. Same thing. Another void, another pull. The third door was worse. Behind it was a reflection of the hallway I was standing in, but distorted, twisted, like a funhouse mirror. The version of me inside that hallway looked back at me, except it wasn't moving the way I was. Its head turned slowly, unnaturally, and then it smiled. I slammed that door shut too, nearly sobbing. The whispers started again, this time louder, more chaotic. They rose into screams, a chorus of agony surrounding me. The hallway shook violently, the walls buckling inward, as if they were about to collapse. And then something inside the wall pushed outward. A hand, pale, bony, with nails cracked and blackened. It pressed through the wallpaper, stretching it like thin skin. Then another hand, then a face, pressing outward, its mouth open wide in a silent scream. Dozens of them began to emerge, clawing from inside the walls, their eyes hollow, their mouths gaping. I staggered back, horrified, as the house's breathing roared, rattling the floor beneath me. And from the chaos, Daniel's voice whispered one last time, "It's too late. You're part of the walls now." The room with no reflection, I ran. My legs moved before my mind could catch up, my footsteps slamming against the wooden floor as the whispers turned into screams. The walls writhed and pulsed, those pale hands and twisted faces pressing out, reaching for me. I didn't dare look back. I tore down the endless hallway. Every door I passed rattling violently as if something or someone was desperate to break through. The air grew heavier with every step, the breathing of the house now thunderous, rattling my bones from the inside out. Finally, one door stood slightly ajar. Unlike the others, it didn't rattle or spew shadows. It just waited. I didn't think I shoved it open and stumbled inside. The moment I crossed the threshold, the noise stopped. The whispers, the breathing, the rattling doors. All of it vanished, as if someone had hit mute on reality itself. I found myself in a bedroom. At least it looked like one. The air was unnaturally still, almost sterile, and the faint smell of lavender clung to the room. A single lamp glowed dimly on a bedside table, its yellow light soft compared to the oppressive darkness outside. The bed was neatly made, untouched. A wardrobe loomed in the corner, its doors shut tight. And on the far wall, a tall, cracked mirror stood framed in ornate gold. I froze when I saw it, because I wasn't in it. The mirror reflected the bed, the lamp, the wardrobe, but not me. Where I should have been standing was nothing, empty space, as if I didn't exist at all. Sick feeling twisted in my stomach. I stepped closer, waving my hand in front of the glass. Nothing. My reflection was gone. "No," I whispered, shaking my head. "No, this isn't real. This isn't." But then something did appear in the mirror. It's not me. At first it was just a shadow. A tall, distorted figure standing exactly where I was, but taller, its limbs stretched unnaturally long. As I stared, it tilted its head slowly, and then its face slid into view. It was my face, but wrong. The skin was pale, sagging as if it had been drained of blood. My eyes were black voids, my mouth curled into a grin so wide it split the corners of my lips. My doppelganger raised a hand and pressed it against the inside of the glass, and the mirror rippled. The glass rippled like water. I stumbled backward, my chest tightening. A reflection pressed harder, its grin stretching impossibly wide. Then, with a sharp crack, the mirror split. Thin lines crawled across its surface like veins, but the reflection didn't vanish. It kept moving, ignoring the cracks, pressing its body forward as though the glass was just a thin film. I backed up until I hit the bed, panic surging in my veins. "Stay back," I shouted, though my voice sounded weak, pitiful. The reflection laughed silently, its body jerking unnaturally, as if someone was pulling it with invisible strings. With a sudden lurch, it slammed both hands against the mirror, and this time the cracks widened, spreading like a spiderweb. The lamp flickered violently, shadows stretching long and sharp across the walls. The wardrobe doors creaked open on their own, groaning slowly, revealing nothing but a suffocating darkness inside. The reflection began to crawl through. Its hands broke through the glass first, long fingers stretching into the room. They weren't mine anymore. These were pale, skeletal claws that dripped with something dark. My chest heaved as I scrambled back onto the bed, trying to put as much distance between myself and the mirror as possible. Reflection's head pushed through next, its neck twisting at an unnatural angle. Its grin was wide enough now that its skin tore at the edges, stretching open like paper. "No, no, no," shouted, throwing a pillow at the mirror. It passed right through the broken surface and vanished into the darkness beyond. The thing crawled further, half its body now inside the room. Its black, hollow eyes locked on me, and for the first time, I heard it speak. "You don't belong out there anymore." Its voice was my own, twisted, distorted, mocking. I scrambled off the bed, my eyes darting wildly around the room. The wardrobe stood open, its darkness yawning like a mouth. The only other exit was the door I came through, but when I ran to it and yanked it open, another hallway. Endless, stretching into blackness. Behind me, the mirror shattered with a deafening crash. I spun around just in time to see my reflection fully emerge from the glass. Its body was jagged, sharp with fragments of mirror still clinging to its skin, its grin wider than ever. The lamp flickered once, twice, then went out. And in that suffocating dark, I heard my own voice whisper right behind me, "I'm the real one now." When the dead remembered my name, I ran. I didn't think I just ran. The hallway stretched endlessly, swallowing me whole. My footsteps hammered the wooden floor, each echo like a gunshot in the dark. My chest burned, my lungs screamed, but I couldn't stop. Behind me, I heard it me chasing. My other self. Broken laughter followed, sharp and inescapable. But worse than the laughter were the voices. They rose from the walls, the floor, the air itself. At first, whispers, then louder, chanting, calling my name, Hamid, Hamid, Hamid. Hearing my name in their endless chorus froze my blood. They knew me. They had always known me. I stumbled, nearly falling. "Stop," I screamed. "Stop saying my name." The voices only swelled, mocking, pressing into my skull. Then the hallway ended. A dead wall loomed before me, smooth, blank, unbroken. Panic clawed at my chest. And then the wall began to breathe. The wallpaper swelled outward like lungs. A pale face pressed through, stretching the surface, hollow eyes staring deep into mine. Its lips cracked open. Hamid. I spun around, my breath caught. The hallway was gone. In its place stood dozens of figures, men, women, children, some freshly dead, others little more than rotting husks. Their eyes were empty, but their mouths moved in unison. Hamid. Hamid. My knees buckled. "No, you're not real." A man stepped forward, his gray jaw hanging loose. His gurgling voice chilled me. "We were real once before the house." A little girl with a broken doll shuffled forward, her whisper cut sharp. We tried to leave, but the house doesn't forget. "Why me?" I shouted. "Why my name?" Her pale eyes fixed on mine. She smiled, cracked lips curling. "'Cause you're already ours." The wall behind me pulsed, wet and warm. I leapt forward, gagging, but the dead pressed closer. Their whispers surged, pounding in my ears. My name. Again and again. Then their faces shifted. Flesh melted, filled, skin reshaped, until every one of them became me. Dozens of versions of me, grinning, chanting, "Hamid, Hamid." Floor cracked open beneath me. I double leaned close, voice venomous. "You were chosen, just like us. You'll never leave." The ground gave way. I fell into blackness. Screams mine and theirs spiraled around me. I hit stone hard and gasped. The chamber stretched forever. Faces pressed into the walls, eyes tracking me, mouths opening. Then in one booming voice, they spoke. "Welcome home, Hamid." Running from shadows that followed, the voice of the walls echoed through the chamber, shaking me to my core. "Welcome home, Hamid." The sound reverberated inside my skull until I thought my head would split in two. I staggered to my feet, my body trembling, my legs weak from the fall. The vast chamber stretched in every direction, lined with faces pressed into the walls, their hollow eyes tracking me wherever I moved. Some wept silently, others grinned with broken teeth, and some just stared, lifeless. I spun around, looking for a way out. My breaths came fast, shallow, my throat burning with every inhale. "No, I'm not staying here," I muttered to myself, my voice cracking. "I can't." As if the house had heard me. The faces along the walls all grinned at once. The chamber plunged into silence, and then the shadows began to move. They slid from the cracks in the floor, oozing out like black smoke. At first they were shapeless, but slowly they stretched and twisted, forming long, spindly limbs, hollow torsos, and eyeless heads. Dozens of them. Their movements were wrong jerky, like puppets dangling from broken strings. They didn't walk. My chest seized with terror. I turned and bolted across the chamber. My footsteps echoed in the endless space, each one chased by the scratching and skittering of the shadows crawling after me. I didn't dare look back. I could feel them close, too close. Their claws scraped against the stone floor, their bodies dragging, their breaths wet and ragged. I sprinted toward the only thing in the distance. A faint doorway, a rectangle of light flickering like a mirage. My heart pounded with desperate hope. "Please," I whispered under my breath. "Please let it be real." The whispers began again, rising all around me. But this time, they weren't taunting or chanting my name. They were laughing. A cruel, broken laughter that made my blood run cold. The doorway grew closer. I pushed my legs harder, though every muscle screamed in pain. The skittering behind me grew louder, faster, like claws striking stone at inhuman speed. At the last second, I dove forward, crashing through the doorway, and landed hard. I scrambled up, gasping. I was back in the house. No chamber, no faces in the walls, just another hallway. This one narrower, darker, suffocating. I spun around to slam the door shut, but there was no door. No frame. Just an unbroken stretch of wallpaper behind me. The house had played another trick. The shadows hadn't stopped. I heard them, crawling, scraping. The sound came not from behind me now, but from the walls themselves. The shadows were inside the walls, moving with me, following me wherever I went. I ran again, this time blindly, my hands brushing against the walls to steady myself. Every time I touched the wallpaper, something touched back. Cold fingers brushing mine, nails scratching against my skin. The whispers rose louder, their words clearer now. "Don't run, it always follows. Don't hide, it already knows you. Don't fight, you've already lost." I shook my head violently, refusing to listen. "Shut up," I screamed, my voice cracking. The hallway twisted unnaturally, turning corners that shouldn't exist. My sense of direction shattered, but I kept running. Every time I slowed, even for a second, I felt the shadows pressing closer, their claws grazing my back. Finally, I burst into another room. This one was empty except for a single chair in the center. On the chair sat something I thought I'd never see again. Daniel. He sat slumped forward. His skin pale, his lips cracked, his eyes were wide open but lifeless, staring straight ahead. A broken smile was frozen on his face. I staggered back, my breath catching in my throat. No. Then his head twitched. Slowly it turned toward me, bones cracking with the movement. His hollow eyes locked onto mine, and in a voice that wasn't his own, he whispered, "It's still behind you." I froze, my skin crawled with dread, and then I felt it. Cold breath on the back of my neck. I spun around. The shadows had followed me into the room. They filled every corner, crawling along the walls, the ceiling, the floor. Their twisted forms closed in, their claws clicking against the wood like teeth chattering. I stumbled backward, my heel catching on the floorboard, and fell hard. The shadows loomed above me, stretching their long arms, reaching. Daniel's broken voice echoed once more. "Run all you want. It always finds you." The shadows lunged. The ending I will never escape. The shadows lunged at me. A tidal wave of black limbs and eyeless faces, and for the first time that night, I couldn't move. My body betrayed me, frozen in terror. Their claws reached down, their fingers brushing my skin with a cold that burned like fire. I screamed, not out of pain, but out of pure animal fear. And then everything stopped. The shadows froze mid-lunge, their bodies twitching like broken marionettes. The room grew still. Only one sound remained, the steady beat of my heart hammering against my chest. Daniel's body in the chair slowly rose. His bones cracked with every movement, his lifeless eyes locked on me. "You don't leave," he rasped, his voice like shattered glass. "No one leaves." I crawled backward, my palms scraping against the floor, splinters digging into my skin. "Please," I whispered, choking on the word. "I don't belong here." His head tilted, a grotesque imitation of curiosity. "You came, you stepped inside. It knows you now." The shadows began to shift again, but this time they didn't lunge. They stood, circling me, creating a prison of darkness. Their eyeless heads tilted in unison, waiting. The house itself groaned, as though breathing in satisfaction. I forced myself to stand. My legs shook, but I steadied them. If this was the end, I wasn't going to die on the floor. I turned toward Daniel. "Why me?" I demanded, my voice trembling. "Why this house? What do you want from me?" For a long, suffocating silence, nothing moved. Then Daniel's cracked lips pulled into a smile that didn't belong on his face. "It wants everything." The shadows surged. I bolted. I didn't think. I didn't plan. I just ran. Through a door that hadn't been there a moment ago. Down a corridor that twisted like a snake. The house shifted with every step. Walls stretching, floors bending, ceilings collapsing. But somehow my body kept moving. The whispers screamed now, so loud they pierced my ears, spilling blood down my neck. You can't leave. You are ours, forever. I stumbled into another door, shoving it open with all my weight. And suddenly I was outside. The night air hit me like a punch, sharp and freezing. I collapsed onto the wet grass, gasping, clawing at the earth as if it would anchor me to reality. The house loomed behind me, silent, waiting. The shadows didn't follow. I staggered to my feet, my legs barely holding me. The road stretched ahead, endless and empty, but I didn't care. I ran. I ran until my chest felt like it was going to rip apart, until the taste of blood filled my mouth, until my vision blurred with tears. Finally, when my body couldn't move another step, I collapsed again, lying face first on the dirt road. And that's when I realized I wasn't breathing in fresh air. I wasn't outside at all. I was lying on the floor of the same house, staring up at the same rotting ceiling. The sound of my own sobs echoed back at me, distorted, as though the walls themselves were mocking me. The door behind me creaked shut with a final heavy thud. And in the darkness, a voice whispered so close, it felt like it came from inside my head. You never left. I understood then. There was no escape, no waking up, no world beyond the walls. The house wasn't trapping me. The house was me. And I would wander its halls forever, just another whisper, just another shadow, waiting for the next soul foolish enough to step inside. And that, my friends, is the story of the house that shouldn't exist. If you made it this far, you're braver than most. But remember, some doors are never meant to be opened. If you enjoyed this chilling tale, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another horror story that will keep you awake at night. Share this video with someone who loves a good scare, maybe someone you want to scare. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and stay out of the dark.